So good morning, everybody. Also the guys who are coming a bit late, but okay. So after all this AI stuff and so on, this is now a rock-solid presentation. So it's a little bit more backward-looking. What we did in Solution Manager for the last 20 years, we can say. And the nice thing is, I was already here also 20 years ago. So in this sense, I assume I can translate relatively good what we did and also what we plan to do with our go-to platforms, meaning SAP Cloud ALM and Focused Run in future. This is not about having nice slides, so it's more about giving you the complete information. As you know, we will run with the operation part out of mainstream maintenance in end of 2027. Different reasons, in particular also technology-related issues with JVMs and Introscope and so on. So there's a bunch of reasons why we decided so, also why we decided to do it differently in the implementation part of Solution Manager. But again, I will also give in this presentation you a kind of indication which functionality ends up. And we also said always that this is not always a one-to-one. Yeah? So this means we did a lot of things much better also in our target platforms. We should also not forget about this. And for certain things, we have still a little bit work to do to find here the right place. And this presentation is about all of this. Again, there's no demo and nothing. It's just to pick up the Solution Manager guys and explain how we do this in future. This picture is shown multiple times. I think I have not to explain it once again. At the end, our go-to target is to, let's say, have SAP Solution as on-premise operation platforms to replace this, again, with SAP Cloud ALM or with a combination of SAP Cloud ALM and Focused Run. And the background is simply this maintenance, our maintenance strategy. As told, the operation part of SAP Solution Manager will run out of mainstream maintenance end of 2027. And there will be also not any extended maintenance for this part. This means everything what is also related to the J2E stack in the Solution Manager will more or less then not be anymore under mainstream maintenance. Also, Introscope will not be available anymore from this perspective. So this is a major thing, and again, this has a lot of reasons. One main reason is also that the SAP JVM will run out of maintenance, the successor SAP machine will only support certain platforms and so on. So there's a lot of reasons, security and so on, which makes this decision necessary. And again, it's now decided, and we are also in relatively good shape in operations with providing you with the right functionality, or as I said, even much better functionality. And again, we have this two target platform. It's clear, Focused Run for operations of hybrid solution. This means if you have also long-term, huge on-premise footprints in the sense of that you have to support also all types of on-premise systems we supported in the past, non-SAP databases and so on. This will only be covered with Focused Run. If you just move with SAP more or less to the bright future and you're just using more or less everything what is supported after 2030, meaning S4HANA, HANA, Web Dispatcher, Cloud Connector, and so on, all of this we will support with SAP Cloud ALM also. And there are some compromises we're also supporting with SAP Cloud ALM as PIPO, for instance, just to help also with this transition. But we will not support all the on-premise systems. For this, we have SAP Focused Run, and here you have the complete coverage. So this means we can clearly say you should really move right now. We can, I think, say this also with any, how shall I say it, bad feeling or something. So this is something you can simply take as a given. And again, if here and there is a small gap, we will close this, or we will explain you why we don't close it. Yeah? Also, to be here clear, it's not that we have the intent to close all things and provide everything what we did in Solution Manager, with the move to the cloud, certain things are simply not relevant anymore. So now let's go one by one. We have two options, as I mentioned already. First option is to move to SAP Cloud ALM, and this is in particular for our cloud-centric customers. Cloud-centric is an artificial term I introduced, to be honest. So it's not cloud only, obviously. And what is meant with cloud-centric is that we support all SAP software as a service and platform as a service components, yeah, including the private cloud components, plus everything what is supported after 2030, meaning S/4HANA, Web Dispatcher, HANA Standalone, we are still thinking about it, the Cloud Connector, so everything what stays relevant also after 2030, meaning long term, this we will support with SAP Cloud ALM. And again, if you need also for a longer period of time, support for the complete variety of on-premise systems, private cloud systems, then we have the combination with Focused Run. And again, it's not necessarily you have to say you have to use only Focused Run or only SAP Cloud ALM. That's why we put it here in parallel, because SAP Cloud ALM, if you decide SAP Focused Run is your leading operation platform, then SAP Cloud ALM will be used as a kind of data proxy. Yeah, so in future, all data we get from SAP managed components, meaning software as a service, platform as a service, will be exposed to Focused Run via SAP Cloud ALM as a data proxy. This is the story what we stressed already with this open telemetry topic. This means we will do the instrumentation once and forward the data from SAP Cloud ALM to Focused Run. So this means also in Focused Run, we will have the complete support of all cloud products. So you can decide what is my leading platform. Again, if you have also long-term significant on-premise footprint, then Focused Run is the right choice. The cloud solutions you get also in. And if you say, no, I'm running in a cloud-centric world, meaning I have only cloud services of SAP plus S/4HANA and, let's say, surrounding components, then you can also take option one and just use only Focused Run. We have also clearly to say, if it comes to mass volume, if you have hundreds of systems, also Focused Run is the better choice. We have here strong template management and so on. It's really intended for mass adoption. Yeah? And SAP Cloud ALM is more for a smaller customer. We have perhaps a handful of on-premise systems. This you can operate also perfectly with SAP Cloud ALM. And then also we have very specific functionality in Focused Run, what we call system analysis, for instance, where we can very deep analyze HANA stacks, ABAP stacks, and so on, J2E stacks, and so on. Also this kind of functionality we will very likely not provide in SAP Cloud ALM for on-premise systems. As we just heard in the presentation before, now these AI components are coming up, so we have to operate also them. So this is something where we invest then more in SAP Cloud ALM. And again, we get then also this data in SAP Focused Run. So this is the strategy. So we can pick up every customer where we are. And this is obviously then the target to have these two platforms. Focused Run, also to be clear, follows from the maintenance perspective, more or less S/4HANA on-prem. This means it has exactly the same technical foundation. HANA is a persistency layer, then the application, ABAP application foundation, and SAP UI5 at the front end. And we always, with every release of Focused Run, we just see what S/4HANA is doing, and we collect more or less here the technology mix. So we are safe from technology perspective until 2040 with Focused Run. So there's no problem. And this is the current maintenance window of S/4HANA on-prem. So we don't know what will be happening in 2040. But to be honest with you, this is not then any more interesting for me, and perhaps for one or the other also not interesting anymore. So in this sense, we can just say we are future-proof. Okay. And then the young guys like Stefan and so on has to take over. They are then still here. Good. It's nice to be in a smaller audience when we can talk more open. Good. So let's now look in the different use case. And this becomes now a bit more detailed. This is perhaps also interesting for, again, our experts in Solution Manager. And I tried really to map every use case we have in Solution Manager to the target architecture. Business process monitoring. So business process monitoring, as I also mentioned already, is something we have only in SAP Cloud ALM. So this means for the focused run customers, if you like to use business process monitoring in future, after Solution Manager is gone, then you have to do this in SAP Cloud ALM. But this makes also a lot of sense because this is when for business users, right? We did it a bit differently than in Solution Manager. In Solution Manager, we would say in German, business process monitoring was a kind of Wundertüte in the sense that we put a lot of also technical KPIs in business process monitoring. And the feedback I received always was, is business process monitoring now intended for business user or is it for technical users? Yeah? And this was, we tried to change this. And that's why we have this, in both platforms, we have this different monitoring experiences. And we isolated the business process monitoring experience really for business users. So we are only collecting business process KPIs in SAP Cloud ALM. Yeah, so it's really, if you like to say so, the focus is much more sharpened in SAP Cloud ALM. Yeah, so this is the first thing. The second thing we did, also lessons learned from Solution Manager. In Solution Manager, we worked always with the modeled business processes. This means you have, first of all, to model the business process, and then you can set up business process monitoring. So the entry barrier was relatively high. And that's why we saw also over years a very low adoption of business process monitoring. This we changed now. Now it's really more done in a way that we say, we give you a menu of KPIs, we even auto-discover what is relevant, and you can switch it directly, automatically in, and then later on you can refine your configuration. You have not now to do a deep level business process analysis before you can start. So it's general our change in configuration that the upfront investment in SAP Cloud ALM is very small. Yeah, you can start directly, you just switch it on, and then you see what you get, and then you can decide, okay, now I add some filters because this is too much or this is not relevant, and then I can start also to, in business process monitoring, to assign authorizations because not everybody shall see everything and so on. So this is a little bit another approach also what we do across all the use cases in SAP Cloud ALM. I mean, some lessons learned are always good, right? So we try also to implement this efficiently. And also for the KPIs, it's also not necessarily our target to have now all these 1,000 KPIs we have in Solution Manager in SAP Cloud ALM. There are different reasons that not all KPIs are in. First reason is all these technical KPIs, whatever iDocs, jobs and so on. For this we have dedicated use cases, which we will not do. Then we have also some KPIs which are simply legacy, meaning they are developed for one customer or something and then ended up in the catalog. So also this we will not take over in SAP SAP Cloud ALM. And then we have also certain KPIs who are simply not anymore relevant. Yeah? So this means here we are really focusing on the ones which stay relevant also long term. The KPIs we are providing are mainly S/4HANA KPIs. In S/4HANA we are supporting all Darreichungsformen, meaning on-premise S/4HANA, private cloud S/4HANA, as well as public cloud S/4HANA. So in all delivery deployment models we are supporting S/4HANA. So this means we keep also the scope identical whenever possible. Potentially over time this will derivate if we see that the code lines are now splitted. So if the code lines let's going in different directions, then potentially this will derivate. But for the moment, the KPI scope is more or less identical. We are supporting also Business Suite. Yeah, also to be here clear, it's not that we only support S/4HANA, we are also supporting Business Suite. Scenario is that customers potentially are using both in parallel and like to compare. So in this sense, Business Suite is also supported. Yes, this is more or less business process monitoring. And again, you see here in the slide, we have always here these details. So if you like to go to the documentation, you can then find always the documentation in our expert portal. So then we have the topic interface PI message flow monitoring. And you see already that we have a bunch of applications which are here mentioned. And this is simply because it was implemented incrementally in Solution Manager. So we did one step and then we learned more from the customers and we did another step and another step. So in this sense, we have now dedicated integration monitoring in both platforms which cover all the aspects, yeah, to make this also clear. And again, you have two options. You can go to SAP Cloud ALM, again for cloud-centric customers, or you go to Focused Run if you are a hybrid customer and have also long-term and huge on-premise footprint. So in this sense, these are the two options. Functionality is, let's say, comparable, not identical, but comparable in both target platforms. Important is now that we invested heavily in this unified approach. This means from the customer user experience, the idea is always that we unify between peer-to-peer interfaces and orchestrated interfaces. And now in particular with BTP, we get more and more of these integration components. It's not just cloud integration, it's also now event broker, it's now also master data integration, master data governance, and so on. So much more of these integration components are appearing, and we integrate them step by step also then in integration monitoring. We do this always first in SAP Cloud ALM, and again with this proxy approach, we then also provide this information in Focused Run. So in this sense, this is here clear the strategy. So unified application, it's always one integration monitoring, and certain aspects like PI monitoring and so on are a little bit better covered now with Focused Run. Our aspects, as I told, for these new integration components are in first line better supported with SAP Cloud ALM and will then step by step be also supported in Focused Run. So this is the approach. Communication monitoring or connectivity monitoring, if you know this term, where we just check whether a chain of systems is available or can be connected, is connected with each other. This is only provided by Focused Run because this is a quite on-premise centric approach. So this is at the end the idea. We have in both platforms also this end-to-end monitoring idea meaning to correlate message artifacts to end-to-end flows. It's a bit stronger here in SAP Cloud ALM, but is also available in Focused Run. This is the integration monitoring. And now we go step by step a little bit downwards. We had in Solution Manager, exception management and exception analysis. We started originally with exception analysis. This means we collected statistical values, how many exceptions were happening per time unit, and we aggregated this on hourly levels. The feedback here was then later on, but I need single exceptions. I like to alert on single exceptions, not just on statistical values. And then we added exception management. We were a little bit hesitating because the volumes with exception management, and also here we came to certain limitations in Solution Manager. Now with our target platforms, SAP Cloud ALM and SAP Focused Run, this limitation is gone. Again, HANA is here used as persistency. This helps us dramatically. So this means here we are collecting only single exceptions. Okay? And if you like to do or calculate out of this statistical errors, so amount of exceptions per time unit, then you do this on the basis of the single exceptions. So this means we don't do this compromise anymore, and we have the complete transparency. And we do this for all type of exceptions. We have for sure in Focused Run a much broader scope in terms of on-premise related exceptions, put it like this, like Java. We just added in Focused Run also the generic capability to scan log files for on-premise components. So we also investing here even more in the on-premise space. So for SAP Cloud ALM, again, we get these exceptions via APIs from the different components. Also, I introduced yesterday, also with OpenTelemetry, we get exceptions in the meantime. So in this sense, this goes more in this direction. Again, will also be then available in Focused Run. So this is how we handle exceptions. It's also a more, as you see, we also consolidated 2 capabilities in one in both platforms. Yeah. By the way, also for the Focused Run customers, we changed a little bit now also the naming, so that the naming is identical in SAP Cloud ALM and Focused Run. Before we used always this term advanced, which was just an artificial term to make clear it's more than in Solution Manager, but now this is not necessary anymore. So in this sense, we put it now, we synchronize now the naming with starting with Focused Run 4.0. User experience monitoring, this I have also to explain. In Solution Manager, we had an own recorder as well as an own replay component developed for user experience monitoring. And what we did there is we simulated the HTTP traffic, so meaning everything what is leaving the browser, right? This means if we are honest, we never monitored really the user experience. We just simulated the HTTP traffic and showed more or less how fast these HTTP requests are processed in the Solution Manager. This means the actual front-end time was not measured. And now, luckily enough, this Selenium-based approach showed up. So it's also an open source-based approach, which allows us to simulate really the front end. Okay, and this we provide in Focused Run as well as in SAP Cloud ALM. So this means in Focused Run we have both. We have the simulation of the HTTP traffic as well as the Selenium-based approach. In SAP Cloud ALM we have only the Selenium-based approach. Yeah, so this means because here we see really the big future more or less, that we can also provide here let's say, a much richer functionality with a Selenium-based approach. It has also some, how shall I say, disadvantage. You have to know a little bit about Selenium, and you have to deploy this. We discussed it already. We have to deploy this with Docker containers and so on. There's a little bit more technology knowledge necessary, put it like this, compared also with Focused Run and Solution Manager, where we just said we take an agent and you put your scripts where and you replay it. So this is not all SAP technology, but on the other hand side, we can simply not afford to do this by ourselves. Yeah? And again, the big advantage is you simulate really the browser. This means if you like to simulate it from a Google Chrome, then you take this option. If you like to do it from a Microsoft Edge, then you take this option and you exactly let run your script as it would be clicked by a human being. Yeah, this is the big difference, put it like this. We're also simulating sub-GUI requests. This is also, we should not forget about this. Still, we have our FAT client, which is used by customers. Not everything is sub UI5 or web-based, put it like this. Also, this we can simulate. Good. But as you see here, only with Focused Run, because again, for this we need our proprietary technology. We don't have this in SAP Cloud ALM. Synthetic user monitoring we have in both platforms, as you see, with the differences I explained. So you can say here Focused Run is really broader if you need, again, native HTTP requests simulation or if you need sub-GUI support. Good, trace analysis. Trace analysis was simply to switch on and trace end-to-end across multiple components. This scenario was always, we have the SAP portal and then we have a back-end system and we like to follow it from the front end to the back end. This functionality is converted in a monitoring use case, which we call real user monitoring. I think we show this on a regular basis. You very likely saw it in one of our presentations. Now also based on OpenTelemetry for BTP Cloud Foundry. And again, the difference is trace is always switched on request versus real user monitoring runs permanently. Yeah? So the idea is here really to have a kind of complementary approach to synthetic user monitoring, have it running permanently and just see where the time is spent for a single user, for instance, or from a single location and so on. So if you do a detailed analysis, so general this is available, but you like to do a detailed analysis, then you can do this with real user monitoring. The reason why we never did it in the User Manager is quite simple. We could not handle the volumes. Very simple. It was a technical restriction. If you would do so, the User Manager would explode. So that's why we never did this. We had this always in mind, but we never did it. It was too dangerous for us. And in our go-to platforms, SAP Cloud ALM and Focus Run, we can do this. We have this running permanently, and you can react to this appropriately. In Focus Run, we have also, in addition, the trace. This means if you need, let's say, beside having this monitoring, also the capability to drill down in a certain functionality, to switch on the ABAP trace or SQL trace, you can do so. We don't have this in SAP Cloud ALM. I have also not really plans in this direction, because then I have to differ between on-premise and cloud. For cloud, we will not provide this, because this is a level of transparency our cloud operations would not provide or would not like to be provided to customers. So in this sense, we will not do so. But you have it in Focus Run in addition, and to the real user monitoring. Besides this, real user monitoring is quite comparable in Focus Run and in SAP Cloud ALM. So this is a complete new use case. Also, to say this pretty clear, was never in the User Manager. So we added also a lot of new stuff. It's not that we have to run around what is missing. We have also to see what comes in addition. Okay, good. The next thing is job monitoring, business intelligence monitoring. Also here, as you see, we had a kind of incremental development, which we changed now. We have one job and automation monitoring, as we call it. Job monitoring is clear. We have to make sure that the jobs are running, and that we are running in a certain time window and with a certain processing time and so on. So you can define the thresholds appropriately, reoccurring jobs and so on. So this is all clear from the functional perspective. What is now new in both platforms is that we have more and more automation environments. And this is really important. Was never covered with the User Manager. We have this only in Focus Run and SAP Cloud ALM. So BTP is, automation is, everybody talks about automation, so very likely there's more to come. But if you break it down to what is available, we have, for instance, in BTP workflow management, we have this IRPA, this robotic process automation, where certain business process steps are executed automatically. This means it is part of your mission-critical process, and appropriately we have also to monitor this environment. If such a robot is dying and is not anymore doing sales and order entry or something, then you have also a disruption in your business process. So in this sense, we have also to monitor these robots and these jobs and so on, which are here running, and the same with workflow instances. If a workflow is somehow disturbed or workflow is not picked up or something like this, then we have also to monitor this. And this is the extension we did in both platforms at the end, so that you can also now monitor automation tasks. Yeah, so this is clear. And here's more to come. I mean, again, automation is in all, everybody talks about automation, so in this sense, as more it is used and as more mission critical this becomes, as more we have to do. Also, I would say, strong enhancement compared to the User Manager. BI monitoring, meaning business warehouse process changes, are also covered in both platforms, so this is also not a big deal. We have not decided yet what we do with the BO jobs. Potentially we add this to Focus Run, but for sure we will not add it to SAP Cloud ALM. You know, we have also this business objects, we have also jobs, and this was covered in the User Manager. So this is something where we are a little bit struggling and thinking about whether we need this. So potentially we add this to Focus Run, but again, not to SAP Cloud ALM. Good, certain things are missing. We had some in the User Manager, some performance statistics for BW, but to be honest, nobody asked us for this. This was just an assumption that this is important. And again, everything what we also assume is not relevant anymore, we will also not provide in SAP Cloud ALM or Focus Run. Good. So now the next topic, system monitoring. System monitoring is very likely the biggest differentiator between SAP Cloud ELM and Focus Run. Clear Focus Run is intended as also, amongst others, as provider platform managing use landscape. You know very likely this story we developed with SAP internally for our own private cloud and HEC operations. We have our biggest instance has around 70,000 systems assigned, so it's really optimized for high volume. And obviously, this amount of systems you cannot operate with single system configuration. So this means here we have a strong template management. We developed this in Solution Manager, and we have it also in Focus Run, and we extended it also in Focus Run. Also to give you here a kind of outlook and information what we do here. We added now a lot of functionality also in the sense of customer-specific metrics. We have now a kind of guided experience, if you like, to define an own metric by yourself with an ABAP-based data provider or with an OS script or with an HANA SQL statement and so on, because we see this demand. Yeah? So we even increase the capabilities in template management, in adding metrics and so on in Focus Run, following ADLs, in particular our service providers, because they are simply very keen to have it very efficient to do the configuration. The idea first of all, we don't have system monitoring in SAP Cloud ELM as such. We have a kind of lightweight system monitoring, what we call health monitoring. But health monitoring is more intended for cloud services, for non-SAP components. And again, we cover also certain ABAP stacks or the remaining on-premise scope for what is covered with SAP Cloud ELM. However, it's more intended to configure a small amount of systems, put it like this. We will add what we call configuration variants in SAP Cloud ELM, but we will not come up with such a powerful template management as you know it from Solution Manager. Because it also has a certain complexity, you have also to deal with it. Again, we also try to make the configuration experience in SAP Cloud ELM to keep it simple, more or less. If you deal with templates, which is absolutely necessary if you have to operate a huge landscape, then you need these templates and so on. But you have also a lot of, how shall I say, boundary conditions. You have to transport the templates, you have to take care about version management of templates and so on. So it's really a complexity as such, which is introduced here, which makes sense if you operate a large volume of on-premise systems, when this makes sense. But again, SAP Cloud ELM is more intended to have a smaller volume, and appropriately we will work with this configuration variants, and that it is. Good. We have health monitoring in both platforms. In Focus Run, it was more developed from the idea to avoid the necessity of whatever Nagios or other generic monitoring tools, plus having also the coverage for the, let's say, technical KPIs for cloud components. So this you will also find in the health monitoring of Focus Run, yeah, to make this also clear. Good. And then we had a lot of root cause analysis functionality in Solution Manager. Actually, this was I think this is now nearly 20 years ago, that in these days, our boss Uwe Hommel said we have to enable now Solution Manager that the people can do root cause analysis. And also in these days, the idea was always, if the customer doing the root cause analysis, we have not to do it. So in this sense, avoid tickets and so on, this all discussion, you know. And this is why we invested so heavily in root cause analysis. And the problem was always with Solution Manager, due to the technical foundation, we could not handle the volumes we need. And root cause analysis is quite simple. As more you aggregate the data, as less the root cause analysis content is. Right? I mean, you need at the end root detailed data and trace data and, you know, very fine-grained data. But again, we had always to find a compromise. And that's why we came up with this workload analysis, database analysis, and host analysis, where we aggregate the data to hourly averages. And we didn't have the raw data. So this is what we did. And this is, as you see, ending up in SAP Cloud ELM and health monitoring. This means we are collecting for the scope we designed for the on-premise systems. We are collecting the raw data and we keep the raw data, we aggregate also the raw data, but we have always for a certain period of time the raw data available. In health monitoring, you have to take care that you don't keep the raw data for too long, otherwise you run on your memory limit and so on. But we have aggregation built in as well as housekeeping. Yeah, we aggregate in health monitoring on daily level and on hourly level, if I'm not mistaken, and you can maintain how long the data is stored on raw data level, on hourly level, on daily level. So this is quite powerful. Now in FocusRun is with the clear scope to provide also detailed analysis capabilities for on-premise components. We have decided beside system monitoring to introduce system analysis. And system analysis more or less summarizes these three capabilities. So this means it gives you dashboards on a very detailed level, and not on an aggregated level, and a very detailed level for all these layers. And it goes even much farther than we had ever in Solution Manager. We can, for instance, now get thread samples from your HANA box. So if you really are hunting a problem in HANA or in ABAP, you can use this really for very detailed analysis. And here the history is we developed the system analysis together with our own IT. Our own IT has the pleasure to always use the latest and greatest innovations coming from the ABAP platform and from the HANA platform. And obviously, we have to figure out what is not working so perfectly. And perhaps you experience this also. It could be that you get an HANA patch and this is really changing things and not always to the positive side. You know, it could be there's a recreation or something is working differently than before. And this is what our IT is doing. And that's why we developed this with them. They are also using FocusRun as their target platform, more or less. And because we developed it with them, we also said why we don't give it to the customer. So this means we have now really analysis on whatever, 25-second snapshots and so on. So in very deep detail. We could never handle this with Solution Manager because again, the persistency was simply not capable to store this amount of data. So HANA is for us a perfect fit, to be also here pretty clear. So system analysis is obviously purely on-premise centric. We don't do this for cloud products. Appropriately, we don't have this in SAP Cloud ALM for the on-premise products, and we will also not invest in this. We just collect metrics and have this history, but in particular with snapshot analysis, what we have in FocusRun, which is really very powerful if you have a critical situation, this we have only in FocusRun, also in future. Good. Introscope, also to say something about this. This is delivered as part of Solution Manager. And this means the support, the official support of Introscope will end up with latest with 2027. However, you can also furthermore use it after this, also to make this clear. If we declare end of maintenance, this just means you cannot, or how shall I say it, the tickets will not really be solved anymore. SAP is not promising to solve the tickets, but you can still use it. You have a so-called perpetual license also for Introscope. And I tell this because also Introscope is used as a data provider for FocusRun, right? But again, also to make it clear, it is not part of the FocusRun license. It's just like you can compare it with the system landscape directory. So it's just a component which you are using more or less and which we're using as an optional data provider. Yeah? So this means from the license perspective, it is also end of maintenance, end of 2027. But again, don't be afraid, you can proceed to use it. Yeah? We just don't provide patches anymore, to be here clear. So this is this situation. It's in particular for J2E important business objects and so on, but these components anyway disappear over time. So in this sense, we will also not do a replacement for Introscope, also not in context of FocusRun. And anyway, this is not relevant for SAP Cloud ALM. Good, then let's move on. Then we have the famous topic, change analysis, configuration validation. Also, as you see here, this is incrementally developed. Change analysis was just collecting the changes to do to discover whether certain changes are happening. This could be a reason for a technical problem that somebody did a change, so very obvious. And then this approach was extended to a configuration validation approach in the User Manager. This means we we took a system, and this is a kind of template, and then we compared to the other systems, and we saw certain derivations. This is now revamped in configuration and security analysis, very powerful in focused run, heavily used. You can talk to BASF. We extended dramatically. We have hundreds of customer stores in the meantime, so this is a well-received capability. We position focused run, configuration, security analysis together with enterprise threat detection. Also, if this passes your way, with enterprise threat detection, we are doing the so-called dynamic aspects, meaning we are scanning the logs and try to find certain attack pattern, versus we are checking the parameters, the configuration parameters and security parameters, so password length or pattern and this kind of stuff. And both together, at the end, gives the customer then really the confidence that it is configured in the way as SAP is recommending this. Again, quite powerful, in particular for on-premise components in focused run. The topic was newly introduced in SAP Cloud ALM, beginning of this year. We have currently coverage for ABAP on-prem, but in particular, we are investing here in BTP direction. So also for BTP, there are security parameters which are relevant for customers, where customers has to take care, and this will become part of SAP Cloud ALM as well as focused run. Yeah, so this means also in the HANA direction, we have here certain security parameters, so this will then also come. This complete scope as we have it today in focused run, I think we didn't decide it every detail, but this will take a long time until we have the same in SAP Cloud ALM. Yeah, also to be clear, currently also the validation part is not available in SAP Cloud ALM, only in focused run. Good. So also here a clear unification, and again same approach as we discussed before. It's always on single item level. So we have every single configuration item. We can simply handle the volumes in both platforms. This was also difficult in Solution Manager. The configuration, also to make this example, the configuration validation in Solution Manager was always background processing. You have always to schedule it and so on, just to pick the people up from Solution Manager. Here we do it interactive. So this means you see, I like to have configuration validation for these 10 systems. I push the button and I get a result. This is again, for us, HANA is a big enabler. Yeah? For monitoring data, also to explain this a little bit, the monitoring data is stored in column stores in HANA. And the nice thing with monitoring data is it's quite similar data, right? I mean, HANA is always good if you have column stores, all the persistency are adapted to column stores, and if the data is not changing completely, more or less. So we have always a constant data delivery, and that's why for us, HANA is really a very good fit, I have to say. Good. Alert management, at the end, also available in both. I just explained a little bit what are the differences. In focused run, it's quite similar as we know it from Solution Manager. This means we have one alert management, which is combined with the event management. And we have one central alert inbox. And the reason for this is because the assumption is that focused run is used by the IT department, and we like to see all alerts coming from all the use cases together in one unified alert inbox. We also call it unified alert inbox, where you have these dashboards, and then you can drill down in the use cases and so on. So more this OCC approach. Now SAP Cloud ALM is more focused on this dedicated different monitoring experiences. As I mentioned, we are addressing business process or line of business users, integration people, background processing people, and so on. And that's why we decided to put the alert inbox in every single use case. Yeah, so that we come more to this, I call it always one-stop applications. This means you have monitoring, analytics, alerting all in one application. This is a change we did. What is better and what is not so good, you can decide. It's a question of taste. But again, we try to sharpen also a little bit this idea to have this, let's say, specific monitoring experiences with SAP Cloud ALM. Yeah? So this is the first difference. The second one is that we differ in between event management and alert management in SAP Cloud ALM. And we did this with the same idea. We like to enable collaboration between business users and IT users. Again, Focus Run is a pure IT tool, but SAP Cloud ALM is a collaborative tool, or intended as a collaborative tool between business and IT. And appropriately, they shall be also enabled to exchange informal messages. This means you can say out of your monitoring, I create an event, which doesn't lead to an alert, so it's not an official thing, but I like to inform somebody about something. There's something what I don't understand, you know, and then I send in somebody an email or a chat message or whatever, and we like to make sure that this is not lost. I mean, informal is good, but we always create an event for it, so we know that this has happened, you know, and then we can do correlation on this event level and not on the alert level, because an alert is something which is also official, and in a lot of customers, an alert leads directly to a ticket. So BASF is telling me, for instance, for us, an issue is not existing if you don't have a ticket, full stop. So in this sense, this is always a bit depending on the policies. So we like to enable with this approach that we split alert from event management in SAP Cloud ALM a little bit more this occasional collaborative communication, put it like this. For Focus Run, we will not do so because, again, we assume that this is pure IT and we know each other and everything has to be more formal and not, let's say, on this informal way. So this is here the difference. Notification management comes here hand in hand at the end. So we have in both platforms also a dedicated notification management. In SAP Cloud ALM, just a side information, we have currently an own developed notification management. In SAP Cloud ALM, we will replace this. There is a central BTP service planned called Business Notification Management, if you heard this one. And very likely in the next year, I assume, we will switch to this official notification management service. It was simply not there, that's why we have to do something by ourselves. But we go always to BTP standard when possible and when the functionality is available. Good, this is alert management. Then we have the topic guided procedure or technical administration and guided procedures. Yeah, there was always the approach to centralize administration. We had different tools here, IT calendar, work mode management. Also, this was developed quite incrementally. A lot of local administration tools was also provided in Solution Manager, which was just repeating certain functionality which was existing locally. So this we don't do anymore. This makes no sense in Focus Run and SAP Cloud ALM. And the IT calendar and work mode management, this is one tool in Focus Run already. We have developed, in addition, the service availability management in Focus Run as part of our service level management. So we have IT calendar on one hand side with the integrated work mode management and the service availability management. And on the other hand side, we have the operation automation, which is the former guided procedure framework, but with a completely new UI and in particular with a lot of out-of-the-box content. So if you compare also from the content perspective, Solution Manager with Focus Run, you will find much more, let's say, predefined content pieces, put it like this. In SAP Cloud ALM, we went even one step further. So we have one business service management, which unifies the IT calendar and the service availability management compared to Focused Run. Here the idea is that we consolidate technical information in a way that it could be understood by business users. So that's why we define these business services on top and say this is now a kind of consolidated information which summarizes the status information of all these technical components. And this is also then visualized in a kind of IT calendar. So in this sense, this is also here then unified, and I need a little bit more. Yeah. And then operation automation in SAP Cloud ALM is more or less relying on external engines. This means on IRPA, on workflow management, on automation pilot. This is deeply integrated, but it is simply missing. Good, what else do we have? Analytics, to keep it simple, we have what you know from Solution Manager, more or less identical in Focus-Tran, embedded dashboards, cross-use case dashboards, as well as external analytics. In SAP Cloud ALM, we have only embedded analytics and external analytics, because we decided now to say, let's use external tools first, and if we see later on the necessity to have also cross-use case dashboards, meaning something similar as in Focused Insights, we can add it. Then we have maintenance and service delivery. At the end, this is something we have only in Focus-Tran, obviously. This is for on-premise systems only, and everything what was missing, we added step by step. Also, we have this certificate management, we have the integration with the maintenance planner, and so on. So this is all available in the same way. And for the service delivery engine, as you know it from Solution Manager, is moved anyway to the cloud. So this means we are collecting the data in Focus-Tran and send it to the cloud, and then it's processed there. But there is, from the functional perspective, no difference. But again, only for Focus-Tran. We have currently not this information, because this is all on-premise information in SAP Cloud ALM. Now, what is missing? And now we come to the blacklist, if you like to say so, or negative list, I think, to be politically correct. So the data consistency management is something we didn't address yet with none of our two platforms. This is a capability where you can compare at the end business documents, persistencies with each other to see, for instance, one business document you have in CRM and it's not arrived in Business Suite or something. This was this use case. The main reason why we didn't invest it in this until now is this is a pure on-premise use case, a very specific use case, always related to a service part, so you need a lot of consultancy to introduce this. To be honest, I'm not finally decided whether we add this. If we would add it, very likely then to Focus-Tran. I don't see that we need this in SAP Cloud ALM, because for cloud-centric solutions, you don't have access to the database layer, so this capability doesn't make sense. Then we have the business process improvement. There was a strategic decision that business process improvement is moved to Process Insights or Signavio. And also this team was moved to where. So appropriately, this is not anymore part of our platforms. This was a strategic decision. Don't argue with me. I would like to have it in our tools, but at the end, this was a management decision that this is something which has to be sold extra. So in this sense, information are provided here. Then we have the job scheduling management. This has three parts, this job-related topics. Job monitoring, obviously, we cover with both platforms. We have then in Solution Manager, we had this job request management, if you remember. This is something we will provide in SAP Cloud ALM as part of the build part. So it will add this requirement cycle, more or less. You can require a job. Yeah? So in this sense, this will become part of the build part, not of the run part. And the actual execution, the job scheduling, this we will not provide. And here the idea is that this is covered by build process automation in BTP. I don't know how far we are, but at the end, the agreement with them is that if SAP invests in a job scheduling mechanism, which is at the moment to a high degree covered by third-party components, that this is then done via SAP build process automation. So long story short, we will not provide this in SAP Cloud ALM, as well as not in Focus-Tran. Then we have the topic system recommendation, also not available in both platforms. And the idea here is that this is replaced by a new cloud service, which is called System Assistant, if you heard this. System Assistant is part of the maintenance planner. So in this sense, we have here a good replacement. If you need here more details, please get in touch with Wilhelm Jütte, who is responsible for the system analysis. Then we have the IT task management. Again, CRM is not available in Focus-Tran as well as not in SAP Cloud ALM. To be honest, I don't think that this was too intensively used in Solution Manager. So in this sense, we also decided not to invest here. But again, everything what you need here from operation perspective in terms of integration to external task management and so on is provided. I think this is also not something which will be missed by somebody. And then we have Introscope. I think we talked already about this. This means there's no replacement also for Introscope. We will not add an additional APM tool or something like this. We will also not develop something in this direction. However, in particular for the Focus-Tran customers, you can also after 2027 use this component until your J2E components and business objects components and so on has to be supported. With this, I'm at the end of my presentation. Sorry, I was a little bit in the plauder mode and took a bit longer. But I hope we have now a good understanding and feeling that we have more or less for everything what we had in Solution Manager and in replacement. And yeah, we are looking forward to move as fast as you can now in the direction of our common bright future. Good. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry for taking more time.